Hey guys, Doug Hare here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about a very gory movie that I really enjoyed. It's called Le Scaphandrier, or Death Dive in English, and it's great. So keep watching to know more about it. Le Scaphandrier is a movie from 2015. It's a Canadian movie, and I would say it's from the province of Quebec. So, for those who are not familiar with the situation in Canada, there's actually a minority of Canadians who speak French, and the biggest concentration of them are in the province of Quebec. So, in average, there's about 90% of the people in Quebec who speaks French. It's very concentrated, so it creates this microcosm in there where we have our own stars, our own songs that we all know and share. It's a very different world. And honestly, the movies are usually a mixture between French movies and American movies. It's very interesting to watch. This one has been filmed in the region of Gaspésie. It's a region of Quebec that is known to be driven by fishing. So, one last thing I wanted to say about the fact that people speak French in Canada is the fact that it's a different French than what you hear in Europe. There are a very big distinction between the two. And I've heard from people who came from abroad and had learned French that once they arrive in Canada, they kind of don't understand French. So it depends your level of mastery in French, but if French is a second language and what you've learned is most likely European French, that won't work with Canadian French. There's many differences in pronunciation that you'd have to get used to before you actually understand. Think of it as Cockney English versus American English. There's huge differences, but they're sort of bigger there because the language evolved completely differently. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Retro Critic, who's been also reviewing a few French movies. So if you like French movies, go check out his content. I'm sure you're gonna love it. So the whole thing is about this wreck that has been found. So essentially, the movie starts with this police boat finding a boat adrift. These guys are SQ, that stands for Sécurité du Québec. So they're provincial police. So for non-Canadians, if you're living in the US, let's say, they're a bit like state troopers. The boat looks abandoned, and we see a newspaper clipping with a picture and something about this guy finding the wreck of the boat, the Princess of the North. They find a crew in this absolutely gruesome scene. Tell me about old school gore. That's the good stuff there. Then we switch to this reporter girl who gets told about the boat.
Oui, ma belle, t'as bien entendu, le deep salvage.
And she's told to interview the boat owner. And the boat owner guy is called Sauvageau. He's a businessman in town. He's also a collector of items found on wrecks. So he's really a wreck hunter. He claims he doesn't know what happened with his boat because he just left it 2 days ago, so before things happened there. And I think it's true to a certain extent that he doesn't know, but he's still very shady. There's also this girl that comes out who looks like she's a prostitute, and then she steals a bracelet, and that will be important for later. The journalist goes back to the newspaper, and it's funny because the admin assistant is saying how this guy, Sauvageau, is charming.
Il est tellement charmant, cet homme-là.
Meanwhile, we know he's not, so, it makes it very funny. Then we see this older gentleman witnessing his fishing poles disappearing one by one into the ocean. That's weird. And the guy comes back later on too. It's sort of a funny character there where he doesn't do anything, he just sees what happens. Then the journalist goes to the museum, and there she meets the director of the museum.
C'est l'Empress of Ireland. Oh, pardon.
Who I recognize from another show that I like called Camping de l'Ours. This one is a comedy. If you live in Canada, it's on Crave. If not, I'm not sure how you would get to see it. It's sort of a show for teens and whatnot, but it's still very, very funny to watch. So anyway, going back to the movie, they're both wondering why Sauvageau spent so much money on the wreck. So the girl decides that she's going to find out. She goes over to a bar to talk to one of the divers, and he tells her about this book that he found for Sauvageau. She also learns about this other diver who's in the Navy and presently aboard a submarine, who we realize kept a souvenir. So that's going to be important. Meanwhile, the journalist's boss and the secretary sneak up on the boat, and they see there's a light there. And the girl gets really nervous, but the guy's thinking, oh, it's just the other guy forgot to turn off the light. They go in there, they look at the stuff, and there's a ton of things that are recovered from the wreck. It's such a bad idea to start touching the stuff, though. The girl wants to steal a vase, but before she gets a chance, her boyfriend starts touching her on the shoulder, and we realize he's dead. Yeah, they both get killed in a very, very gruesome way again. And by the way, I don't think the eye would come out intact on the other side of the head if you got stabbed like that. That's not very believable. But quite funny, honestly. And then the other funny part is I didn't even recognize them for who they were. At first I was like, who are those people? Yeah, sorry. So the journalist and the director of the museum look into the history of the wreck and discover that there was a diver who died trying to get the book before. And apparently it's a very precious book from Persia that they would have to give back to the country if they were to find it. That's why Sauvageau is keeping everything under wraps and he doesn't want anyone to know about the book. So the journalist goes and visits the diver's daughter to try and find out more about her father. And she starts telling her that her father would bring back toys from wrecks, which is really creepy when you think about it. Because the kids are probably dead, and that was their toys. And she knows that, but she kept them because it reminds her of her father, who died while she was still a kid. Oh, I mean, that makes sense. That's also when she reveals that her father was hired by Sauvageau, well, actually, Sauvageau's father, to go get a book. And apparently the guy wouldn't give a dime for the burial of the diver. The guy's a bit of a cheap ass there. But the guy disappeared at sea at some point, so well deserved. But there's still a hint of mystery there. I mean, why did the guy just disappear? And the lady tells the journalist that the sea doesn't give back what it takes around here. So it's kind of weird. And the journalist goes and visits the diver's old house with the director of the museum. And there they find the dead bodies of the couple. And man, it's so gruesome. I mean, wow, it looks like they used real organs there. It is so gross. I love it. Then we switch to this guy who's in the Navy, and this guy in a diving suit starts killing everybody on the submarine. You'd expect army people to be able to fight back a bit more than that. To their defense, there's not much they can do against him. The guy just wants his stuff back anyway. Then later on, we get the director of the museum being threatened by an employee of Sauvageau. And it's hilarious because he asks if he has a spare tire because, his tire got slashed. He's like, yeah, thank you. And then he slashes the other tire saying, but you don't have to.
Mais t'en as pas deux.
Wow, what an ass. Oh my god. That was hilarious to see. So later on, we see the hooker getting choked and electrocuted at the same time before the diver just cuts off her arm to get the bracelet back. I'm thinking, wow, choked and electrocuted. Choke-trocuted. Sounds like a song by Def Clock, honestly. So, with the director of the museum, they figure out that the killer is somebody dressed as a deep-sea diver, but they can't figure out why because that stuff would be heavy. The director guy says that just the helmet would weigh about 50 pounds. So you need somebody really strong to go around with that. So they try to find out if somebody has a kid like that, but the person would know is dead. And later on, there's a full invasion of zombies that come to get back their stuff. It's a very, very gruesome ending there. And honestly, it was funny. There's many loose ends that are not completely done at the end, but overall, it's a very good watch. If you like old school gore, something like Night of the Living Dead or Return of the Living Dead actually would be a bit better comparison there. I think you'd love this one. You just have to skip the fact that it's in French. So it's a movie that I strongly recommend. It's very entertaining. It's kind of a mix of funny and dark at the same time. Go check it out. It's definitely worth it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to share, like, and subscribe. That would really help me bring you more great content. In the meantime, take care, guys. See you soon. Ciao.